Today we've got a great revenge story against grandparents who forgot their grandkid's birthday. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I thought she was my friend. I have a coworker that I thought was my friend. We've worked together for almost a year. A few months ago, she walked out on her job. She wanted to come back and I got her job back. I've loaned her money, bought her food when she didn't have any, and even defended her on multiple occasions. Well, yesterday I found out that she'd been talking mad crap behind my back and flat out lying about me to the new employees. It really hurt because I've done so much for her. I was on closing shift last night, so I had to do the deposit. On top of the deposit bag, we write our tips so we can minus it in the daily operating report to see if we're short. And we leave the top of the deposit bag on the desk because the deposit bag number is needed to open the store in the morning. I know for a fact that this coworker gets angry when she sees people getting large tips. It makes her jealous because she's really bad with money and always totally broke. And because of how she treats customers, she never gets tips. I decided to write a fake number for my tips. I only got like $8 in tips, but I wrote $48, knowing it was going to totally destroy her whole day. There is no way for her to verify my tips, and writing a fake number down doesn't affect anything at all. It's not like it'll mess up the count or anything, and 48 in tips wouldn't be common, but not unheard of for a Friday night. I've gotten larger tips for the night. Then, today she texted me, asking if I could come into work an hour early so she could leave an hour early. I've never told her no before. I've always helped her out when she asked. But today I rocked the boat and told her nope. I know she's at work right now, totally fuming because she thinks I got large tips, and because I would not come in early for her. I'm sitting here eating my dinner in my car, feeling satisfied for the moment. Update, so I didn't expect my pettiness to have such an effect on her. I got to work tonight and as soon as I walked in the door, she started slamming stuff around and throwing stuff. I went straight into the bathroom and texted my GM. He immediately got on the security cams and started watching her. I kept my head down and my mouth shut and said absolutely nothing to her. After watching her for about 5 minutes, he hopped in his car and came straight to work on his day off. She still didn't stop slamming stuff around, but it wasn't quite as violent once he got to work. He told me he was going to have a sit down with her tomorrow about her behavior and her creating a hostile work environment for everyone when she behaves that way. My GM said he hopes she quits tomorrow so we don't have to deal with her anymore. This might just be a good reminder that there's a caution sign attached to becoming friends with the people you work with. Unless there's like pre-existing history there, it can definitely get messy. VIP Taken wrote, people like that will take some more, but I bet if you needed a shift covered or a loan, she would be nowhere to be found. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is Mother's Revenge on My Behalf. So this is a story requiring some context, but my mom retold it to me recently and I'd completely forgotten. My time in primary school was not great for me. I lived in a very rural area, and year groups were small, probably less than 25 kids a year. I was a smart kid, but admittedly a bit odd. For this reason, it seems I was bullied for pretty much the entire time, 7 years, I was there. Now, main bully, MB's mom, was on the school board or something equivalent, so this kid never got in serious trouble. It was the beginning of a new year, and my mom had bought me a new bag and a new water bottle. I was apparently naively thinking my new bag would help my situation. But of course, when I returned home later, my bag had been ripped and my plastic water bottle smashed. To say my mom was livid was an understatement. She and I drove over to Main Bully 1's house and she marched up to the front door with bag and water bottle in tow. Main Bully's mom opened the door and my mom proceeded to detail everything Main Bully had done to me over the last few years and threatened to cause an absolute crap show for the school board if nothing changed. My mom also demanded recompense for the damaged water bottle and bag. Now, Main Bully's mom knew what was going on and of course didn't really care. But my mother was/is a respected youth community member and powerful in other ways. So Main Bully's mom gave the usual spiel of blah blah, we'll talk to him, etc, etc. My mom still insisted on recompense for the breaking of the water bottle, which she'd never done before, as Main Bully's family weren't well off. Now, we weren't well off at the time, but my parents both worked in a well-paying sector and we definitely didn't need this money. To put it this way, Mean Bully's family needed that money a lot more than we did. My mom asked because, in her words, it's the principle of the matter. We came home and around 2 weeks later, a check arrived in the post for the cost of the water bottle and bag. Now, here's my mom's petty revenge, and it made her smile so much retelling it. She never cashed it. She just loves the idea of Mean Bully's mom writing this check even though they needed the money. And the fact that Mean Bully's mom knows that we have this check that we've never cashed because it was never about the money. Unfortunately, the bullying never really died down until I got out of primary. My last few weeks were interesting as I finally started sticking up for myself. I got in quite a bit of trouble. If you want to hear more, let me know. This story really is just so telling about how good of a person OP's mom is. Even when their kid has been bullied for years and their property damaged and ruined, they still have compassion for the person who ultimately doesn't even really care. From Anderson wrote, "Your mom is a class act. Seriously though, I never once saw a teacher or any school staff so much as lift a finger to help a kid who was being bullied, even when it happened right in front of them. They ignored it until the bullied kid stood up for themselves. Then it was a problem. That almost always ended with the victim getting punished." Our next story is, "Don't stiff a hungry fat man out of his gravy." I just went to a Popeyes on my way home. I already had food at home, but I wanted to supplement. I ordered a mashed potatoes with gravy, then ordered an extra container of gravy and paid extra for it. I circle around to get my order, and there's no container of gravy. I back up and complain, but they tell me they put the gravy on the potatoes with the other gravy. I tell them I want a container of gravy, but they tell me I'll have to go back through the order line, which is backed up around the corner, so no go. I get home, pull out my receipt, and go onto the customer survey webpage. I left a scathing survey talking about how they ripped me off for a container of gravy. So since very few people do those surveys, their rating will tank next week. The best part is, I can take that receipt with the survey number on the back to another Popeyes and get a free 2-piece meal with the order of a large drink. A lot more than the 50 cents they ripped me off for. So let me just say, I'm a person who loves fried chicken. When it's right, I think Popeyes is awesome, but if I had to pick a fast food chain that has routinely screwed up or given such frustrating experiences, I would probably be picking Popeyes. The few times I've gone, they have a drive-thru, and every time I try to order and go to the drive-thru, they say, "Or a new item comes out and it comes with X amount of sauces." You best believe there's a great likelihood they're going to screw that up somehow. Ragtev wrote, "My wife is from Mexico, and there they pronounce it like if it was read in Spanish, Popeyes, and it blew her and her friend's mind how it was correctly pronounced. We decided Popeyes was better, so that's how we refer to it now. And from time to time, I'll call Popeyes that to other people not in on it who get very confused." Our next story is, "Don't do the project, don't pass the class." This happened while I was taking a biology lab class. More than halfway in the semester, a new student, Morgan, joins my partner and I in our group as we're discussing plans for our final project. By this point, they'd missed 3 lab assignments and practical marks. That same day before dismissal, we were supposed to discuss plans for our final project. Morgan went to our lab TA and told them the objective of our experiment without having a proper discussion with my partner and I, who had been discussing plans prior to their arrival. Their suggestion was inhumane, cutting off parts of an animal for regenerative studies, and wasn't allowed in our course. This was clearly stated on our manual, but they didn't know because they didn't have a manual, which is a requirement. A week goes by and I've heard nothing from Morgan. Throughout this time, I've been contacting my partner, asking if they've heard anything from them, but they said no. So I had to find their contact info on our class list and email them about our outline for the experiment. They had contributed nothing to the planning of the experiment, but I brushed it off as our marks really came from our presentation. After our actual experiment, we needed to create a slideshow and record. A few days before the deadline, I messaged them if we could record the day of the deadline. This meant that we needed to create the slideshows and organize the data beforehand. However, only my partner replied. A few hours before the deadline, my partner and I decided to split up Morgan's portion as they'd not replied to our messages. They had chosen to work on the more significant portion of the work, except they didn't do jack. So my partner and I finished the slides, and as we're about to record, we saw Morgan typing on the shared Google Doc. They apologized, saying their phone had gotten ran over so they couldn't type, but could see all of our messages. So why couldn't they email us, contact the TA, worked on their portion of the presentation? Morgan didn't even bother opening the PowerPoint we had shared with them. Oh, I forgot to mention, we had 2 weeks to work on this presentation. After my partner and I recorded the presentation, I went to the Google Doc to see Morgan had typed that they could still record from their tablet. And present work they didn't do? Nope, not happening. Following this, I took the matter to higher-ups, giving all of the evidence, timestamps, history of the edited document, and text receipts. I think it says enough that their only edit on the document was their apology. And guess what? The presentation was only worth 5%. But to Morgan, who had missed out on a majority of past assignments, who knows how much it was worth? I had not seen Morgan in the following labs or the practical exam. Our TA only acknowledged my partner and I on our feedback, and we ended with a grade of 97. Personally, I think you have to be a spectacularly awful teacher or professor if you assign a group project and one of the groups has a member like Morgan who doesn't do anything, puts in no effort, makes all the excuses, and then still expects to get some kind of good grade leeching off of everybody else. It really blows my mind when teachers insist, no, you have to just work with this person who isn't going to work. Also, I wouldn't even want to work with somebody like this who immediately jumps to, hey, I got an idea, let's cut off parts of an animal for regenerative studies. I'll run down to the pet store and pick up an unethical axolotl. The Cronian wrote, I didn't go to college, but I was kind of the opposite of this person in high school. I never did any of my schoolwork outside of school, like homework and whatnot. Disabilities and disorders prevented me from having any real drive to excel in public school once it became more effort than simply knowing the information they wanted you to know. But when it came to group projects, I would get fought over because the rest of the group would spend about 10 minutes coming up with a basic outline, and then they'd hit me with a bunch of questions and just write down everything I said. We would knock out a 3-day project in probably about 2 hours. That being said, I cannot imagine trying to work with someone who's not doing anything. I may have been doing all of the thinking for most of these projects, but because of my disabilities, I am very, very poor at writing. Like I physically have a lot of difficulty using a pen or pencil. So in my mind, it was always kind of 50-50. I had all the information and I knew everything that needed to be written down, and the other kids just wrote it down. This kid sounds like me and probably should have stuck to a GED or a high school diploma. College is like real, actual workplace work prep. You're writing papers and doing all of these things because they're training you to write reports and draw up project outlines or whatever when you actually do get a job. I may not ever make as much money, but I am so much happier fixing people's air conditioners and pouring concrete. OP responded saying, right? I think the most likely possibility was that Morgan was trying to see if uni was a good fit for them. They told me they were in an open studies program, basically taking uni courses without being enrolled in a degree program, but fell short of uni expectations. Our next story is food sabotage. One day, me and a friend were out in town just shopping, walking around, nothing too exciting. We walk into our favorite fast food place just to get some fries and a drink. My friend says she couldn't afford it. No problem. I offered to buy it as it wasn't expensive and we always helped each other like that. She refused. I asked another 2 times. As I didn't want to be eating alone, feeling like a jerk, she said it wasn't an issue, so just order. So I did. As soon as I start eating, she starts pinching some fries. I ignore it, pinches a few more. So I state again, I really don't mind you getting some if you're hungry. They assure me, no, I'm not hungry. You sure? They say yes. Okay, stop pinching mine then, please, as I'm really hungry. They say okay. Take a mouthful of my milkshake, and she steals a few more fries. At that point, I just took the lid off my milkshake and poured it over my fries, saying, I don't want them anymore, and you said you didn't want any, so let's just go. She was so mad, but I was just laughing to myself. Petty? Absolutely. But dang, was it worth it. This is cute or tolerable when it's your partner, it's your one true love. It's a lot less cute when it's just your buddy that just keeps stealing your fries after you insisted, hey, I'll buy you a small. I'll buy you a kid-size fry, just stop stealing mine. Sympathy for Deviled Eggs wrote, people who won't get their own food because they say they're not hungry, but keep taking your food are jerks. Reminds me of one guy I knew who said he wasn't a smoker but always wanted to burn one if he saw you smoking. Freeloading trash. An old fart responded to that saying, "That kind of person can be very frustrating." I was shopping with a new girlfriend many years ago. It was a little afternoon and I was getting a bit hungry and suggested we have a quick lunch at a place with gold arches down the block. She said she wasn't hungry but would have a soft drink while I ate. I asked her if she was sure she only wanted a drink when it was our turn to order, and she said she just wanted a drink. I ordered 2 burgers, a drink, and nothing more. My friend asked me why I didn't get a combo with fries, and I explained I wasn't a big fan of their fries. She gave me a dirty look and said, "How am I supposed to steal some of your fries if you don't order any?" She sat there fuming while I ate my burgers. We just kinda drifted apart a few weeks later. Our next story is F.U. father-in-law. Back in 2002, I was 22 and at my soon-to-be wife's dad. He was an obnoxious jerk, plain and simple. Asked me if I always dressed like that for a family event. By the way, it was a cookout and having just left work, I was probably the best dressed guy there. I held my tongue because I knew us getting along meant a lot to my girlfriend. Fast forward 8 months and he's still an insufferable jerk. I could do no right. We're at his house having dinner, eating his way too overcooked burgers nobody but him liked, and he asks me to pass the salt. I was literally taking a bite as he asked me, not an accident by him, so it naturally took a few seconds for me to put down my burger and comply. When I did, he loudly muttered, "About freaking time." I lost it. At that second, I didn't give a freak about anything. I was so darn tired of trying to kiss up to this bully just because everyone else did. I launched my rock-hard crab cheeseburger at his face, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it exploded on impact. I was a quarterback/pitcher in high school. Not the too darn done burger, but everything else. The image of a pickle stuck to his forehead still makes me randomly burst out laughing till this day. I left the room in a shocked silence after kissing my in-shock fiancé on her cheek and headed home. We broke up that day for my shameful and disrespectful behavior. I've never regretted it, though. I'm a dad and I'm a very protective dad. However, I'll never be a jerk to someone my kids love just to boost my own ego. After putting up with this guy and trying to get along with him so much, your partner not understanding why you did what you did, even if it was a bit too far. I mean, for your stress and your happiness going forward, they probably did you a favor breaking up with you. Old Man Jeepin wrote, "And your fiancé/girlfriend at that time never stood up for you? You dodged a serious bullet, my friend. You lasted longer than I would have from the sound of it. My ex's mom, the mother-in-law, she was like that. Nothing was good enough, ever. Everyone was afraid to stand up to her or they didn't want to rock the boat. At least not for me. I took care of it one day. A big holiday, actually. She stepped out of line about me being late when I had to work that day, gave her what for and went home and got liquored up. Freak her, wherever she is." Our next story is how I caught my now ex-wife cheating with my best friend. I destroyed his marriage as payback. I was married to my prom queen type high school sweetheart for 10 years. She had become distant, as hard as I tried to be loving and a good husband. I adored her and placed her on a pedestal. There were lots of little signs that indicated that something wasn't right. I just had a gut feeling but never suspected her of cheating. One time I walked into the study and she quickly changed the screen on the computer and smiled at me before distancing me with some inane banter. The next day I installed spyware software on the computer that took a screenshot every 10 seconds and captured all keystrokes. After a few days I checked it and discovered that she had a secret Hotmail account and the spyware had captured the password. I went into her account and, much to my horror, discovered 6 months worth of emails between her and my best friend. I read them all. Hundreds of emails documenting their affair. Weekends away together when she told me she was at a conference or training course. Midweek hookups while I was feeding and bathing our 2 young children before bed. Freaking each other's brains out in my bed while I was at work. I was stunned. My world came crashing down around me. I honestly went into shock. For a few days I struggled through it but didn't say anything. She went away on a course the next weekend. I knew what she was really doing as I was checking the emails between them. Here's the revenge. I printed off every single email between them for the 6 months. Over the weekend while they were away, I went around to his house and sat down with his wife, who was also a close friend and lovely person. I handed her the ream of paper I had printed and sat there for 2 hours watching her read all the emails. She was sobbing and crying as she read. As a now humorous side note, she looked up at me and said, "Do you want a freak? Haha." I said no, but gave her a hug. I didn't want to stoop to their level and give them justification for their behavior. When my wife returned from her dirty weekend away, she walked in, and I walked past her with a bag in each arm. She asked where I was going, and I said I'm leaving. I left you something on the table. It was the printout of the emails. I walked out the door and never went back. She begged and pleaded for a year, but I no longer trusted or respected her. His marriage was done within the year. I'm still happily single, while she is miserable in another marriage. You know, if OP took her up on that offer, this wouldn't be the first time I heard a true story of a best friend cheating with a friend's spouse, and then effectively the offended one swapping with the other friend's spouse. I'm so old now wrote, "What about the kids? I hope you still see them." OP responded saying, "Yes, absolutely. I had my kids every second week. I gave her the house and the good car. I paid very high child support, health insurance, private schools, and more. I have a wonderful relationship with them still. They both came and stayed with me once they were older, as the mother was a nut job and they couldn't stand her." Our next story is throwing my neighbor's dog crap all across her front door and walkway. This neighbor has a large dog that they let leave the house morning, afternoon, and night all by itself. So it's basically just walking in our neighborhood, and it'll always pick our lawn to take a big crap on. In the beginning it was annoying, but I threw it away a few times because she's an out-of-shape old woman. Then it was happening multiple times a day. She won't walk the dog, just let it out to crap and come back. So I talked with her. She said sorry and that she would take care of it. Fine. The next day the same thing started happening, and for a little while I started just throwing it away. Then one day it crapped 3 times at the house and I just lost it. I went back to her and said, "Enough." And again she gave a sorry. The very same day it crapped again. This time I picked it up and threw it in her driveway, and I've been doing that every day for a week now. Yesterday it took multiple craps again and I lost it again. I banged on her door and she starts giving me a sob story. "This was my late husband's dog. I don't want it. My daughter doesn't want to take care of it. Blah blah." She said she'll try to clean up. This morning, first thing I see on the camera is her dog crapping on the lawn. So I got my glove, picked up the crap, and just tried to skip the juicy crap like a skipping stone across her walkway and to her door. She never asked for help, just bull crap excuses. We have family kids playing in our yard all the time, so it's not just for my sake. I feel kind of bad for the dog walking on roads by itself and the 5 coyotes we've had recently, but yeah, I don't know. She won't learn by talking. Not really sure how to proceed. Honestly, if I wasn't concerned that the treatment animal control may give that dog wouldn't be the best for it long term, I would almost say it would be better for the dog. I mean, obviously, I think that dog would be a lot better off having a more attentive family that can manage them and not just let them aimlessly wander the neighborhood. The idiot Henry wrote, "We have a neighbor who constantly lets their dogs crap in our yard, particularly when she walks them after dark. Myself and one of the other tenants in my building have recently convinced his kids, 6 and 10, to hide in the bushes in the back garden and leap out shrieking when she stops in our garden with her dogs. This has produced hilarious results over the last several days." Our next story is grandparents forgot my birthday. All of my 16, almost 17-year-old female grandparents forgot my birthday until a few days before. Ordinarily, they ask about plans and if I want anything specific a month or so in advance, but this year they all had to be reminded. This makes me angry because there's always been favoritism with my brother, who not only got a truck for his 17th birthday, but got to go on a trip with his friends to the cabin my grandparents own in Colorado. Anyways, they wanted to have dinner to make up for it. They're having me pick the place, which works out perfectly. My parents and I like Asian food, but my grandparents hate it, so we're going to eat at my favorite Asian food place. The cherry on top is that I grew up a picky eater, so when these grandparents took me and my brother out to eat or cook, they would make me wait until after dinner to find me whatever fast food was convenient, even if I barely liked it, or just tell me they have chicken nuggets, even if I never wanted chicken or needed healthier food. This place serves chicken nuggets as an appetizer, and I'm going to pull out the, "well, they have chicken nuggets" excuse. Take that, jerks. At first I was going to be like, okay, maybe it's excusable for them to forget the birthday date exactly, especially if they're a more distant relationship, you don't talk to them super often, until OP added in all the other extra favoritism stuff for the other sibling. You just know if it was the brother's birthday coming up, they wouldn't be forgetting. Valerica Mirwin wrote, about 6 years ago, my mother stopped calling me for my birthday, despite the fact that she calls my older brother for his, and our birth dates are 15 days apart. He's 3 years older. She sends a card each year as well, which usually came a few days late. But at this point, she started sending it a month or more late. If it wasn't for the fact that she remembers my brother's birthday each year, along with every inane detail of every rando she knows, I would chalk it up to her being forgetful in her 70s. After 2 years of this, I stopped calling her for holidays and her birthday. I just send cards and ensure they get to her on time, including thoughtful passive-aggressive messages about how much I'm eagerly awaiting that phone call she promised in her last card. Basically, I decided that the phone works both ways. By the time she stopped calling me, I was the only one making all the calls and no one should have to call someone else to get birthday wishes on their own birthday. She rarely even asks about my 3 children, her only grandchildren. It's like they're accessories of me that she occasionally recalls that they exist. If she doesn't care, I don't need to either. I don't regret it one bit. My brother and I get along great, by the way, but he was the favorite growing up. He doesn't understand why she started doing this to me, and I've given up bothering to figure it out. Hopefully what happened with your grandparents forgetting was a one-time thing. I won't make excuses for them, though. If it wasn't, never feel guilty about cutting someone toxic from your life, blood-related or not. But don't burn bridges until you're certain that's what you want. Happy birthday. Our next story is, use a parental lock on a TV at a paid hotel? Feel my wrath. Last night I stayed at one of those apartment-style hotels that are owned by individual investors. They had applied a parental lock code to the TV so I could not watch anything, not even free-to-air TV. After a bit of faffing about trying to break the code, I decided to just hard reset their TV. It worked a treat, and I was set. But before leaving this morning, I changed all their input names so they read Freak, Your, Parental, and Controls. Pathetically petty. Were they worried that somebody that's renting this place out and staying in this room would go and get a pay-per-view binge? Is it one of those TVs where you save your credit card credentials on there so they're afraid somebody's gonna go to Netflix and buy the shiny 6-device ad-free plan? Folded Fireplace wrote, in one hotel, I had HDMI blocked for some reason, overridden it in service mode. LG TV, it's easy and there are many videos how to access it. SA87 wrote, as someone who works for a company making the back-end software that runs the interactive TV portal for hotels, good job. It craps me to tears when a customer of mine wants to lock out the source select. There should be no reason to remove access if the ports are accessible, but I have to follow instructions. Not my problem if things are changed after sign-off. Hints for the more popular brands in the market: LG ProCentric Hospitality Web OS 3.2 and above. Basically anything sold in the last 3 years. It's press and hold settings, wait for the channel number OSD to appear in the top left, then quickly key in 1105 and press enter. Codes for older screens are easily found online. Samsung Hospitality is mute 119 OK. Philips is 319753 mute. Sony is weird, you need to cycle through 3 different modes to reach Pro Settings Config and back again. I can't ever remember the process. Sharp Aquas is a crappy key press combo on the side panel buttons. Again, I never remember this one. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another awesome revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.